Hello, it's Teresa. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you're here. Today I'm sharing with you these sweet hot cocoa boxes that I made, and they do stand up on end. They are 3/4 of an inch in depth. And to make the mug shape of these, I used a die set from the Stamps of Life. It's this one right here. It's called Mug A2 Fold It Set. It's to make fold it cards, if you're familiar with those. But we're going to use it in a different way today. For the embellishments, I used this die set from Burniston. It's called Winter Charms. And I used the larger icon images to embellish mine, but you can use whatever you have in your stash. These make great little gifts and favors for family and friends, as well as coworkers. And they'd also be great as a craft fair seller, I believe. So if you're interested in learning how to make them, stick around and we'll make one together. To make our project, we're going to use one sheet of 8.5 by 11, 110-pound cardstock. Now we're going to use that to cut out our shadow layers of our mug, as well as to make our box portion. So keep that in mind when you're selecting your color of cardstock. With the 8.5-inch side up, we're going to cut this at 6 3/4. We're going to put this strip aside because that's what we're going to make our box portion out of. But first, we're going to cut out our shadow layers for our cup with what's remaining. Now for assembly, these are going to go right on top of each other, but for decorating, we're going to need mirror images. So we're going to flip one of those over, and this will be our back side. So with the handle on the left, we'll know that that's our back side, and it's going to have kind of the rough cut shape from the die. And the right side will have, you know, the prettier side, die cut side with the handle on the right. That's just important for you to remember when you're layering your paper to achieve the desired outcome. Now, keeping that in mind, that they are going to ultimately end up like this on top of each other. If you notice, this bottom is kind of rounded, and so we want ours to stand up straight, and we don't really want it to rock. I mean, if you do want it to rock, then, you know, keep it as is. I like mine to stand upright and not rock. So what I do is take it, and I'm going to put it in my trimmer. I'm going to flip it over to that rough cut side. I've got these stacked on top of each other because this is a flatter, straighter side. And I'm going to stick that in my cutter. And I am going to cut off just the tiniest little bit. I mean, just a sliver from the center of the bottom. As you can see, it looks like that. And you can even take your scissors and get rid of those points later if they bother you. But that will help our finished product to stand up straight and not wobble. So for now, we're going to set these aside, front to the handle to the right, back handle to the left. Next, we're going to use this die and select the pattern paper that we want to use for our mug. I've chosen a paper from this collection. It's Recollections Sugar Plums. This was a Hot Buy paper pad from 2020. And this is the sheet that I will be using. Just going to put my die down and see where I like it. I think right about there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then I'll come back and show you how to cut out the back side. So I have my front side all cut out, and for the back side, I'm going to show you a little trick. What we're going to do is we're going to take our paper, and I want to line it up in a similar pattern position to what I've got on here, but I need the mirror image. So I'm going to need to cut from the back. Mine is blank on the back side, so it's kind of hard to see, you know, where I would line that up to get the cut that I need. So what I'm going to do is bring it up to a light source, and whether that be a window or a lamp or whatever it is that you can find, and that way you can see the pattern through it and get the cut that you want for that side. So remember, you're going to be cutting on the opposite side of the paper. That's very important for the outcome of our project. So now that we have our front and our back images cut out, we're just going to layer these on top of our front and our back pieces. And we can go ahead and do that now. Now, one thing that you want to be mindful of when gluing, I like to put my marshmallows, like tuck them in right here. So when I'm gluing, I'm going to avoid this area just so that I've got that space evacuated to tuck my marshmallows into. Next, we're going to take this die, and we just want to use this tiny portion of it. This is what the liquid in our cup will look like, and I want mine to look like hot cocoa. So I am just going to use some 65-pound weight cardstock in kind of a darkish brown, and go ahead and just cut a tiny sliver off and die cut that out. And I'm going to do it twice. So now that we have our two die cut pieces, remember, one is the front, and it's going to layer right in there, and the other one we have to flip over to the back to create the mirror image, or else this piece will not fit properly in there. We're just going to go ahead and glue those down. Our next step will be to create our charm. I think I'm going to use this cute little guy. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut him out of some scrap 110-pound cardstock that I had left over after I cut these pieces. But don't cut into this one that we cut in the beginning and I had you put aside. Make sure not to cut into that one, but you should still have some scrap left that you can use for your charm. This little charm came with some detail pieces, so I cut the icing out of some white glitter cardstock and just a backing layer to layer, because with these holes cut out, I wanted a different color of contrast to show through. And I also inked around the edges of this little guy with some vintage photo. Next, we're going to grab this die, and this is the second largest marshmallow die. Now, the largest one in the set, I think, was just too big for these mugs. You know, it's your preference, and it is designed as a shadow layer, the largest one. Since this one doesn't have a shadow layer, we're going to create our own. But first, I'm going to cut this out of both a white glitter cardstock and 110-pound white cardstock. I'm going to cut it twice, and twice each. And then I'll show you how we're going to assemble from there. So now we have two white 110-pound cardstock cutouts and two of the glitter. Now this is completely optional if you want to mix and match like I'm doing, or you can just do your own thing, but this is just a suggestion and it's how I prefer to do it. So then we're going to take one of the evacuated spaces, one of the negatives from our die cut, and we're going to take a scrap of 110-pound white cardstock. I'm just going to layer this over it. And with a pencil, I'm just going to draw the inside image of that. And I'm going to do that twice. This will give us something to adhere our die cut pieces to. Now I'm just going to fussy cut these out, making sure to stay on the inside of the pencil line. These cuts don't need to be perfect. Next, I'm going to decide if I want my outer layer to be glitter. If so, I can just layer it on top like that, and I don't have to inlay any more pieces, and I can just use these other pieces for a different project. Or I can have my outer layer be the 110-pound cardstock, like this, and layer that on top, and I can inlay it with the glitter pieces. So let me just show you what that would look like. For my project, this is my preferred look, so I'm going to go ahead and do them all like this. Next, I'm going to pull our front side back in, remember, handle to the right, and I'm going to attach our charm. To do that, I'm just going to figure out where I want my charm to be, and I want him to dangle right about there. So what I'm going to do is attach him with a brad, and to make my hole for the brad, I'm just using this Cricut tool. You can use a pokey tool, you can use a very small hole punch, whatever is going to get you through that 110-pound cardstock. So again, this goes through really easily, just twisting it a little bit, applying some pressure. I can already feel it through the back side, just making sure that the hole is big enough for me to insert the brad. I'm going to stick the brad through my charm and then through the hole. And I'm going to attach this securely by folding these prongs back, but not too tightly because I do want him to have some movement on the cup. I think that's kind of fun. Next, we're going to position our marshmallows inside of our cup. So just figure out how you want yours arranged, just kind of tucking them in, kind of like mine at different levels. I think that looks pretty good. And when you're happy with the placement, just go ahead and hold them in place and get your glue nozzle in behind. And just glue them down. You just want to hold them there for a few seconds till the glue grabs. Next, I want to embellish mine with a little bit of sparkle. So I think what I'm going to do is use these. These are from Recollections. It's called the Christmas Specialty Glitter. These come in red, white, and green. As you can see, they're really pretty. I think that they're so fun. And I'm just going to grab 3. I'm not really sure of my placement yet. I think I just want to do the white. Like doing things like this in odd numbers. I think it's more interesting. And I also like to place them where it doesn't look too intentional, but in some sort of a triangular fashion. So something like that I think is pretty. I'm going to use my jewel picker to help me get those down. And if you do get any glue seeping out of the sides, if you clean it up right away with a pin, nobody will ever know. I'm going to set this aside to dry and we're going to work on our box. For our box, we're going to use this piece that we cut at the very first, and this should measure 11 inches by 1 3/4 inches. We're going to change that a little bit. With the 11-inch side up at the top, we're going to cut this down to 10 7/8. And if you have a cutter like mine, that is just 2 little tick marks in front of the 11 if the measurement of 7/8 intimidates you. Next, we're going to put that piece in on our scoreboard with the 1 3/4 inch at the top, and we're going to score at 1/2 inch. Make sure you go over it a couple of times if you're using 110-pound cardstock like I am, and 1 1/4 inches. We're going to rotate that once to the right so that our 10 7/8 inch portion is up at the top. And now we are going to score at 3 7/8 and 7 inches. Next, we're going to fold and burnish all of our score lines. I like to use a bone folder for this, especially when I'm working with boxes. Find it's easier if you score and burnish, fold and burnish your scores on the long ends first. And then we're going to take a pair of scissors and we are going to cut on our score marks, starting at the edge on our long sides, just up to that 1/2 inch score line. We're going to do that on all 4. We're going to cut straight through the middle. We're not cutting to the right, we're not cutting to the left, we're cutting straight up that score line. and stopping right there. Turn it around to do it on the other side. To assemble our box, we're just going to glue this together, and we're going to make sure that our sides are parallel. I'm going to put my sides in first and then glue this portion over the top. That way, when we stick our contents in, if we had it like this, it might grab, hit right there and be hard to get it all the way down. This way, we avoid that issue. So just going to go ahead and kind of hold it like this. Put a little bit of glue right here. And I'm going to do these one at a time, just because I'm using glue. And I mean, you can use dry adhesive if you would like to, but you only have to hold it for a few seconds before this glue grabs if you're using, art glitter glue or a similar glue. I'm going to flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. Just hold it, making sure that our corners are nice and square. On to the next side. And the last one. Again, making sure that your corners stay square. Your finished piece should look like this. Now it's time to put it all together. To assemble, I like to start with my back side first. Just flip it over. Kind of do a dry fit as to where I'm going to position this. It doesn't extend all the way to the edge, but really, really close. So you're just going to want to be mindful of that. It also won't go all the way down to the bottom because of these rounded corners. So just try to line it up to the best of your ability, using this side as your straightest edge, just as a guide. And all you're going to do is put glue all over these sides. And stick it down. Once you kind of have it where you want it, come in with your bone folder, just kind of go over it. Now we're not going to be able to do that on this side because we've already attached our bling and our embellishments, but it'll be fine. We'll just need to hold it for a second. Make sure we get these nice and stuck down. Take a look, making sure that we're pretty square in here. Now we're going to do a dry fit just to see how this fits. We also want to make sure that our bottoms are lining up so that it's not rocking. So that looks really good. So now all we have to do Put our glue on. Be pretty generous with it. And we're just going to line it up over the top, making sure that the box isn't showing anywhere and making sure that our mug stands up as we want it to. And once we get it there, we're just going to hold it in place until the glue grabs. And it actually feels really, really sturdy. You can reach down with your fingers if you want to and pinch it a little bit. You can also go in with your bone folder, just avoiding where you've got the bling, which is mostly, on mine at least, in the center. You can leave that step until last if you want to. Now the last thing, if you want to, it's an optional step, you can use some glossy accents and you can go over the hot cocoa portion. I can kind of show you what that looks like as I've done it on my others. Just gives a little shine to it. So you can do that if you want. It also deepens the color of the cardstock. I use the same color cardstock, so it's up to you. For this one, for time purposes, I'm not going to use the glossy accents. Plus, I kind of like the way that it looks on this one without it. So we're just going to go ahead and fill this one up. And I think for this, I'm going to use this Swiss Miss with marshmallows. Now this is a little bit thicker of a hot cocoa packet, but it does work with this design. I've checked it. But what you might have to do is, if you notice, this has kind of a wide seam on either side. I just trimmed that down a little bit. There's still plenty left, so you don't have to worry about the contents leaking out. But that helped it to fit better. So just slides right in there perfectly. And then I've got a candy cane, and we're just going to stick that right in, and we're done. I hope you enjoyed today's sweet little project, and if you did, please remember to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Also, click the notification bell so that you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Until then, bye!